Badbury Young!
Hello and welcome to the Badbury Young channel. Now this is part 2 of my simplicity top. This is the S9177 top that I've been working on, and now I'm going to be going from this, which is my mock-up, which I've done 2 of. This is mock-up number 2, from this to a finished garment. So I've got all the pieces, I've got all the pattern pieces redrawn out and cut out and worked out as I want them to be. I've done some alterations and amendments, and hopefully it'll all start coming together, well, reasonably quickly. I certainly hope so, because it's turned out to be quite a long project. But yeah, on we go with it and see how quickly I can get this together. Well, trying to move on with my top project, because it's a top project. I'm now got all the materials cut out, well, nearly all, with the exception of the arms, because there's a little bit of trickiness with the arms, because I've made an amendment to this pattern. I found that the arms sizing isn't quite right across the shoulder part. So I'm going to construct the rest of the garment, and then I'm going to cut the arms out once I've done a bit of measuring and made sure that it's all going to go together just right, hopefully. And actually this isn't even the finished garment, because what I've decided to do is make a finished garment, but not with the material I'm going to use for the very final make, because I don't want to mess it up, basically. And I know I've done 2 mock-ups already and everything seems to be fine with the mock-ups, but I still don't want to make a mess of it, so I'm going to use this. Now this has got dogs on it, you can see that very well. It's quite late here at the moment, I'm doing this at night time. So the light isn't brilliant, but that is the material I'm going to use. So it's got this dogs on it. Now this is a quilt cover basically that I've used, and I like the pattern. The material's quite nice. It's going to be very similar to the material that I'm using for the final make, but it will be actually a usable, wearable product. But the contrast that I'm using, because this quilt cover wasn't the same on both sides. That's basically the one side, which would be the main feature, as it were. And then the other side was this print, and that was the back, or the flip side, you know, depends if you fancied that on your quilt cover there for that night, flip it over. So that's going to be the contrasting material to it, so the inner side, or what will be the facing, but this will also be the cuff as well. So that's the material I'm going to use, and I'm going to get on with starting to put this thing together. And I think I'll start with putting the interfacing on the facing pieces, because I want to make sure that I get, and then do of course the stay stitching where I need to, because I want to make sure when I do the interfacing that I've got the right pieces that I'm using. There'd be pain in the backside if I start sewing up the wrong pieces, because this one has a facing piece that's the same size and shape. So enough waffling, I suppose, and better get on and start putting it together, starting with, as I said, interfacing. Well, I've managed to get the interfacing done and the stay stitching done, so that's all been put on all these pieces, and now I can actually start putting the thing together. So instructions tend to help. Right, starts off with this bit and this bit, so I've got to put these 2 together. Is that one, or is like that? So I stitch that up both sides, because I've got both sides here. So from either side, only this one is the dog pattern, and this one is the other pattern, the contrast pattern. So, well, get them pinned up, get them stitched together. I have a decision to make. Thread. Now, the main pattern is this, with the dogs on, and it's sort of a brown colour, and I've got some thread that is a gold, I think it's meant to be, and it really matches quite well on this. But of course, I've got the contrasting material, which is mainly white. So do I put white thread and the gold thread together, or do I just go all out with the gold thread, regardless of the fact that there's a lot of white in the contrast material? Because there is gold in this bit, in the crossbar things, you know, and the markings in it, even though there's black and there's red. It's mainly white, but there is gold in there. So do I use two threads for the material, or do I just go all out for the gold? I'm just going to go all out for the gold, I think, and well, just see how it comes out, I suppose. Now I've got to attach my yoke to my back piece, but first I need to do a bit of gathering before I pin it together, maybe even base stitch this so that I got the right width. So this will fit onto here, because at the moment it doesn't. So a bit of gathering to do, and then some pinning, and then some sewing, and get those two together. So now I've sewn together the two front pieces. That's the one with the two dog parts, and done the seams, finished the seams, and steamed the seam down. So it's to steam the seam forward on that one, and so that's the right piece, and this is the left piece with the contrasting panel all done, and the back piece also put together, the yoke put in. Now that was a bit of a bugger, getting that bit of a you know, pulling it together. Forgot what it's called. Never mind. Trying to get that right, that was a bit of a drama, to be quite honest. I ended up having to do that twice, but it went together nicely in the end. And as a coincidental accident, the yoke where the dog is almost matches the dog fur below it, so it sort of patterns up okay, I suppose. Done the seam and steamed that as well, so that's all coming together slowly. So the outer parts are starting to come together. I think next after that I've now got to start doing the interfacing, which is the parts that I put the sorry, not the interfacing, the facing pieces that I've already interfaced. So now I've got to start putting them together to start getting the main construction of the body together, I suppose. I suppose I've got to read the instructions a bit more really and see exactly what I've got to do next. Well, I've now managed to get the facing pieces onto this garment as per the instructions, just about. As you can see, it will go like that, and then on this side that's the facing piece, comes round the back, and this one, because it's hidden like that, we've got the same contrast material on there. It was a little tricky to get in, but seemed to go on all right. Now there's a couple of things that I think I should be doing next, but the pattern is telling me not to. So I suppose I ought to follow the instructions and go with the next step rather than finishing the parts I think it needs doing. So I'm going to put this down to one side, the main part, and the instructions now tell me to do the sleeves. Now I haven't cut the sleeves out yet because on my mock-ups I'd always had a bit of an issue with the size of the sleeve, not the length, but the distance that I've got to cut. To get the shape right, so that when I put the shape into this bit before I stitch up the sides and the sleeve, it always seemed to be a little bit out. So I hadn't cut the sleeve, so that's what I'm going to cut now. But I'm actually going to measure this part of the sleeve so that I can get it hopefully correct without wasting any material, because the sleeves are actually quite big. They use up quite a lot of material, so you cut them out wrong once, you've lost quite a lot there. I mean, you know, it's nearly half a garment. So yeah, I want to get it right before I actually cut anything out, because that's just going to be yeah, a pain. So on to sleeves. Now, after much jiggery pokery and messing about with the pattern, because the pattern piece was slightly wrong, I redid the pattern piece for the sleeve, and now I have two sleeves, or a pair of sleeves, or however you want to phrase it, you know, sleeve left and right sleeves. So see, these sleeves are quite big and they're not actually full length, they only come so far down my arm, and then I'm going to have the big cuff. But that's used up quite a bit of material in itself, so that's why I wanted to make sure that they were going to be right. Well, I certainly hope they're right, because I haven't got much material left to do more sleeves if I haven't. Yeah, two sleeves, so I have to sew them on and take it to the next stage. Now I have sleeves. I've managed to put them on. Obviously haven't got the cuffs on yet, but I have put the sleeves on, and they seem to have gone on okay. I can start to get an idea that the shape of this is right. Obviously you can see a bit of this contrast here, but I mean, the idea is I probably wear it more like that, even though you won't see the dog if I do that, but that's alright. It seems to be okay on the fit. It seems to be alright. It seems to be fine on that, doesn't it? It seems to fit me quite well, so I'm quite happy with how it's going. One small thing to do with the with this seam for the arms that I'm not quite so happy about. The issue being is that on here you can see that this is quite a tight curve, so no matter how careful I try to be when I'm stitching this, because of that curve and the way it attaches onto the sleeve, because you sew all this bit up the side and the sleeve all together as one, but it means there's always a certain amount of, I don't know, puckering, as it were, that I just can't get it to sit nicely. So that's a bit of an issue, and it just seems to be because it's such a tight curve here. When it's sat flat like that, it's fine, but as soon as you try to do anything with it, especially with the seam on the inside there, it just causes this puckering that I can't get rid of. So that's a bit of an issue on this top that I've found. No real way around it unless somebody else knows how to get around that. It's just a consequence of the pattern, I suppose, but never mind. Onwards now, I suppose. I've got the hem to do on the bottom here and get that sorted, and then there's the cuffs to do and get that sorted, and then we're almost actually there. Top assembled, as you can see, it's all on. Well, almost. Haven't got the buttons on yet, which reminds me, did I get some buttons? No. But I do have a bag, say it properly, a bag of buttons, so I'll have to have a look through that lot to see what might fit for this top. I really don't want to have to go out and buy buttons, because I do have a load and it'll slow down the finish of this project, which you can see it's almost there. The contrast, I can have it out like that if I want, or do all the buttons up once I put the buttons on. Now the sleeves aren't necessarily functional in the way that this bit works, and I can't decide whether to have it this way over or that way over, and whether to actually put buttonholes in or just sew the buttons on. Partly because this is wide enough for me to get my hand in and out without having to undo it. It is there as more of a decorative thing, so I could just stitch buttons on and not have it opening, and then I don't have to bother doing the buttonholes for them. Just the buttonholes up here on the actual main front. So time to find some buttons that might go nice with this. So, button bag. Ooh, wow, look at the size of them ones. They're huge. Not sure they'll be quite right for this. They're at least 1 inch and a more in diameter. They're quite big, them. Lots of small ones, you know, like when you get a shirt or a top or something, it's got a couple of buttons on, they always give you a spare one. Well, I do save them, because I mean, you do end up with quite a lot that are very similar or very much the same. But I want some, they're not bad, I quite like them. Get the light on there. They could work, maybe. Green, they're not going to work, they're green. Got some of these dark, very ordinary black ones, maybe. I don't know. But, yeah. They could go well. Contrasting ones. See if I can get a light on that. Not really. Well, maybe. Don't know. I'll have to give them a try. Have a look and see what works. So, maybe. I don't know. Mix the buttons. Don't want to buy any, so something from here is going to have to do. So here we have it. One finished top. The Simplicity S9177 top. Now, it's been a bit of a journey. 2 mock-ups and a lot of, I guess, say messing around, but it's not really. It's just experimenting and learning, because I mean, this top has been an experiment for me, really, because I've never done anything quite as technical as this, not in as a beginner sewist. It's really quite a challenge for me to do something of this type with this many different features in it. So I mean, I think I've done quite well. It seems quite nice. It's got generally a fairly nice fit to it. There are a few little errors and things here and there that could have been done better, but I mean, as a new sewist, and what I've learnt from doing this is immense. I've learnt loads from doing this top, and it's come out really quite well. I'm really happy with some of the little details that I've put in and the little changes that I've done. I mean, I've changed the cuffs, and I've changed the line of the turn on the hem where it comes up underneath the arms, because I just did that to make it a little lower, to give it a bit more room in the arm, because I was worried about that. Generally it seems to come together quite well, and I'm really quite happy with the way it's turned out. It's a very nice top, fits really well. The buttons on the cuffs are actually fake cuffs, so I've just buttoned it up so they can't be undone. There's no buttonhole there, but the buttonholes for the top, for the main part, well, they've come together quite well. I was quite glad and happy the way that they turned out, because I was a bit worried that I'd get them all in the wrong place and then it wouldn't button up properly, but it's come out all right, and generally it's a nice top. Fits well, and there's enough room in this that I can wear it on top of other clothes, or I could just wear it sort of on its own, at its own top. But it's certainly comfortable, and I'll probably do another version of this in some other material, some really nice material, especially now I've worked out and sort of ironed out the kinks, as it were, on this top, and I'm really pleased, and I'm very happy the way it's come out. So yes, I think another going of this top at some point in some other material, without the fear that I'm going to make it all wrong, now that I've worked it all out, and that's just really brilliant. So also gives me a chance to be able to go and move on to other projects that are maybe as technical or more technical than this, and not feel fearful that I'm going to make a complete mess of it. So yeah, very nice, turned out lovely. I'm really happy with the way it's turned out. So shall I make something else next? I'm not quite sure. I do have other projects to do, but I'll have to have a look and see what else is on the list for me to get done. Coming to nearly the end of the year now, so I have to be a bit choosy about what I'm going to get done next, I suppose. Well, thank you for joining me on this video. I look forward to joining you on my next video. Bye.